All right, I think we're good. Hey everyone, and welcome to Talisman Digital Edition. I'm Tom, the marketing exec, as you can tell from my little thing down there, here at Nomad Games, the studio that make Talisman Digital Edition. So our friends at Valve have been nice enough to include us in the daily deal for today, or the 13th, depending on when you're watching this. So I thought I would put together a little video that can play while the event is happening, so we can just talk about Talisman. I can show you the game a little bit, hang out, and generally just have a nice chill time. So I'm going to go through the game, show you what it's all about, answer some common questions that we usually get, and just generally hang out a little bit. Yeah, big thanks to Valve for helping us get this all set up. And without further ado, I think we should start playing the game. Seems like a good idea. Cool. Alright, so Talisman Digital Edition. For anyone that doesn't know, Talisman is a board game that was first released in 1983, I want to say, because it's the 40th anniversary. That's how I can remember. The 40th anniversary this year. So yeah, 1983. There's been 4 editions, and this digital edition is based on the 4th edition physical board game. So it's been around for a long ass time. 40 years is a long time. But it's got a lot of fans over the years. Many of whom I've interacted with directly or indirectly, because it's a very much loved game, and with good reason. I think it's got a lot to give as a game. So let's actually play some Talisman Digital Edition. All right, so I've got a bunch of saved games here, but I'll make a new one. All right. So the aim of the game in Talisman Digital Edition is to reach the Crown of Command at the centre of the board, which seems pretty simple, but getting there is where the challenge comes in. So you choose your character, there's loads of characters to play as. You can check out all the different characters, especially the extra characters that you can get in the expansions and the extra character packs. Here on the character selection screen. So you thought, like, the Smash Brothers games had a lot to choose from. I think we just about beat them out. I think there's like 101 characters. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's a lot to choose from. And they all have different quirks, different abilities, and they all play slightly differently. So, for example, you've got the Wizard, who very much focuses on spell casting, and can battle opponents in psychic combat, or you have the Warrior, who is much more combat and weapon focused. So you can roll 2 dice at once to battle in combat, although if you have no idea what Talisman is, that probably doesn't mean much to you, but trust me, he's a fighter. He's much more geared towards combat. And you've got tons of characters that all have unique abilities and traits and skills. Some of them are unique to certain expansions, and some of them, like the ones down here, are available in character packs. So yeah, basically, it's a lot of people to play as. I'm going to keep it simple. I say keep it simple and then start looking at very complicated characters. Yeah, I'm going to play as the Pilgrim. That's my choice. Right, so Talisman's been around for 40 years. You'd expect it to have quite a few different expansions, and you'd be right. There's a lot of expansions to play with. We've got the Reaper, Dungeon, Sacred Pool, Blood Moon, the Dragon, Woodland, and then some digital exclusive expansions, which we've made. So the last 3 expansions, which are here, Realm of Souls, the Ancient Beast, and the Clockwork Kingdom. So us here at Nomad Games, we made those. The other expansions are all based, well, I say they're based on, they are one-to-one adaptations of the expansions that exist for the physical game. So they are 100% faithful, and the 3 expansions that we made with the approval of our good friends at Games Workshop. So we've not just thrown out some expansions that we didn't really think about. Like, these were properly made by us, our designers, all approved by Games Workshop, and they've gone down really well with the fans over the years. I think Clockwork Kingdom stands out, and Ancient Beasts both stand out as real fan favourite expansions. So if you've only ever played the physical game, it's well worth checking them out. Alright, so I can choose to enable or disable whichever expansions I want. So I think what am I going to do? I'll keep it fairly simple because I want to, basically my plan is to talk you through a game, show you what Talisman's about, not get too complicated. Then once I've gotten a certain amount through that first game, I'll play another game with a lot more stuff turned on, and generally just chat about Talisman, chat about some other things, chat about future of Talisman, what we've currently got in the works, what we've got planned, and just, yeah, go from there. So, in light of keeping it simple, obviously we're going to turn on the base game. Let's add some cards from the Frost March and the Sacred Pool and the Blood Moon. Now, I don't think we really need to turn anything else on, so I'm going to keep it like that. We have house rules, so because Talisman's been around for literally 40 years, people have a lot of specific ways they like to play, and other people like to play in different ways. So we've enabled a huge number of house rules to allow you to customize how you run your game. Quite a lot to choose from, even down to house rules for specific expansions. So it's not just you apply them to the whole game. If you're playing with a particular expansion, you can turn house rules on or off just on that expansion, because obviously expansions have different rules, and those expansions might run differently, or other people might run them differently. So basically, based on community feedback, that's where all our house rules came from. Because, you know, we play Talisman here at Nomad, but we don't play Talisman as much as you guys do, because we can't, because there's only like 15 of us, whereas there's hundreds of thousands of you. So yeah, we basically looked at what the community was requesting, and over the years we've just added new house rules. Alright, so I don't think I want to change anything in the house rules. I think I'll keep it nice and simple. Endings. So, won't go into this too much because I'm just explaining it for people that may not necessarily have played Talisman before. But basically, the game has a number of different endings. So, whereas the base game, the end goal is to just reach the Crown of Command, cast the command spell enough times so that everyone dies. There's other endings that put a bit of a twist on that. So people might prioritize different things based on the ending. Basically just gives you other ways to play, which I think is pretty cool. But that's just me. I'll stick to the normal Crown of Command ending, because again, I don't want to get anything too complicated. So, I've chosen the Pilgrim. We've got 3 AI that are on random. So let's go. Alright, I'm going to have a drink because I am thirsty. It's a smart thing to do when you're thirsty. Alright. Now, we are ready to play some Talisman. So, I'm going to draw a spell. I'm going to start the game with a spell, which is quite nice. Reanimate. Cast an enemy you just killed, place his card on the enemy. The reanimated enemy becomes your follower. Has its strength or craft yours during one battle or psychic combat of your choice. Then discard this card and reanimate the reanimated enemy. Okay, cool. So for anyone that's not played Talisman before, this probably looks very complicated and look, there's a lot of going on, but it's actually not that bad. So I can talk you through what's happening. So you've got the different characters that are playing here on the left, or is it the right? I'm trying to... No, it is the left. I was trying to work out if the image would be reversed in the stream, in the recording, but it's not, so it's all good. Yes, on the left you have the characters that are currently playing and all their stats. So you have a number of different stats for each character. Each character has a certain number of fate, gold, strength, craft, and life. So fate is probably the most interesting one, so I'll talk about that first. So Talisman is all about rolling dice. It's a board game from the 80s, like we're not too surprised. But because obviously when you roll dice, sometimes it'll go the way you want, sometimes it won't go the way you want. They implemented a thing called fate. So when you roll a dice, if the result isn't something you want, you can spend a fate and then you'll be able to re-roll that roll. You can do this as long as you have fate to spend, and you can do it once per roll. So while you are still relying on an element of randomness, because that's part of what Talisman is, it's random, you do at least have some control over not getting completely destroyed by a bad roll, which is quite nice. But then you need to choose wisely when you're going to spend your fate. So it does add an element of strategy to it. The next thing that you've got is gold. That's the yellow one. As you can imagine, gold is used to buy things. Very straightforward. You have in the red and blue, that is your strength and craft. So you have two ways of fighting enemies. You can either fight them with strength or you can fight them with craft. Basically represents your physical strength and your power with magic. If you're fighting something that's a magical creature, fight it with magic. If you're fighting something that is a physical thing, you'll fight it with your strength. Makes sense, right? Each monster has on it which type you need to use. So the aim of the game, while it is to get to the center, you can increase your strength and craft through the game. So you're basically trying to get strong enough so that you can reach the center without dying. And the final, in green, is your life. No points for guessing how that works. Every time you take a hit, your life point goes down by 1, and if it reaches 0, you die. Pretty inventive, right? Alright, so I think that is a pretty good explanation of what you need to know about characters. So now it's my turn first, because I'm cool like that. I get to roll the dice, and then depending on what the dice result is depending on how far I can move. 1. So I can either go left or right. Doesn't really make a difference, so I'm going to go to the hills. Let's travel here. Alright, so I draw an adventure card. So this is the main way that you will get anything in Talisman. So in the physical game, you have a adventure deck, which is full of cards that you draw from whenever you're instructed to draw. So it's shuffled up randomly, so you never know what you're going to get. So sometimes it might be something good for you, sometimes it might be an enemy you have to fight, sometimes it might be a stranger who will do something weird to you, not in a weird way, just like they do odd effects. You know what I mean. So yeah, that's another way that the game is random. Some people love it, some people very much don't love it. I personally fall on the side of loving it because it means every single time I play Talisman, I never know what's going to happen. It's always going to be different. I play a lot of roguelikes, so that definitely appeals to me. So, I've arrived at the hills. Let's draw an adventure card. A Lich. Okay. So, he's got a craft of 4. If you're defeated, in addition to losing 1 life, place 1 life counter on this card. The Lich is defeated and life counters, is not killed, and it loses 1 life instead. Will remain here until it is killed. Alright, so, combat. I get to show you combat super quick. So, the way combat works is you both roll dice, the attacker and the defender, and then you add either your craft or your strength to that result. And then whoever gets highest wins. Nice and easy. So he currently has 3 craft because he's got a -1 modifier. So I should 4, not bad, versus 1. Cool. So that means I win. Because my final result is 8, this is 4, I win. So while having more strength or craft doesn't necessarily mean that you are guaranteed a win. Obviously, if I had 6 craft, there'd be more dice rolls where I was either guaranteed to win or the odds are better in my favour. So you're basically trying to get the odds more in your favour as you play the game. I've also just realised that the spacing is a bit... Oh, hang on. Oh no, there's a natural... Alright, let me just do some moving so that everything's spaced alright in the video. Cool. I think we're all good. Alright, so I win. So I get to take the Lich as a trophy. So before I mentioned about you probably want to increase your stats. So the best way to increase your stats, the most consistent way to increase your stats, is by trading in trophies. So once you hit 7 of a certain either strength or craft, you can trade in 7 points worth of that ability, and then you will gain a point in it. So if I take out a craft monster that has at least 3, I'll be able to turn that into a craft point, which will mean I get 5. If I'm overloading you with information, don't worry about it. Once you get the basics down, that's the thing, because there's so much going on in an average game of Talisman. Excuse me, I'm trying to explain something here, and you are cursing me. They immediately move back to the start space. That's rude. That's very rude. Yeah, what was I talking about before I got rudely cursed? I've completely forgotten. Yeah, there's a lot going on, but the thing is, once you understand those core mechanics, like how combat works, how strength and craft works, everything else just basically riffs off that. So it's not that hard to get your head around. So we've got some combat between the samurai and the witch doctor. I always forget how that's pronounced. Samurai or samurai? I'm gonna go with samurai. Samurai seems alright. Alright, got the dwarf. What are you gonna do, Mr. Dwarf? What's your plan? Alright, go see the Sentinel. An adventure card, Wrathborn Warrior. So a strength of 2. Attack roll is lower than its strength. Roll 1 die and the result of the attack score. Okay, so if he rolls lower than 2, get added. Right, so that's 8 versus 6. So dwarf wins. Cool. Alright, dwarf wins and gets a trophy. So once you get a certain amount of those, you'll be able to trade them in. But not quite yet. Alright, let's see where my options are. I could fight the witch doctor. Is there much point in me fighting the witch doctor? don't think there's much point in me finding the Witch Doctor. Let's draw an adventure card, because you never know what you're going to get. So we've got the Ivory Sentinel with a strength of 6, which I don't like the look of. Alright, the Samurai's helping me, so maybe I can win this? No, that's a 1 versus a 2. Okay, so I can spend a fate to re-roll this dice. So if I get a 2, then it's a draw and I don't lose any life. But if it's higher than a 2, I win. I think that's worth the risk. I think there's pretty good odds. 6, nice. Cool. Alright. So I get a trophy. Ah, yes. So while I said you can trade in 7, I've turned on a house rule that means that you can trade them in for lower. So I think it starts at 5 and then increases every time you do it. So, I was saying about house rules before. So in a normal game of Talisman, you need 7. In this game, because I've turned house rules on, because I prefer playing that way, which is the point of house rules, you can trade in 5, but then the next time you trade in it'll cost 6, next time it'll cost 7, so on and so forth. So let's trade for strength. So I'm now up to 3. It's not bad. Alright, Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor is the Witch Doctor. Where are you going? The plains. Right, fair enough. But yeah, so basically, this is Talisman. This is the base game. I'm playing with a couple of expansions turned on. But if you already have the base game and you don't have all the expansions, right now we are discounting all the expansions, every single one. So if there's anything that you haven't picked up yet, or you're looking to add something extra to your Talisman game, now's the time to do it, because we've also discounted the Adventurous Starter Bundle. I know that over the years we've had a lot of people either pick up just the base game of Talisman, get gifted it by a friend, because we still have the 6-pack, I believe, and also it's been given away a couple of times, and it was in a Humble Bundle. Basically, odds are you probably own Talisman, and if you don't, you should. But if you own Talisman and you played it once or twice, but you aren't sure, what expansion should I get? There's a lot of content. Like, I need to know what you would recommend. Basically, we talked to the community, both of the physical and digital versions, and said, look, what do you think are the best expansions for new players? What is going to stop them from getting overwhelmed, but also show them that there is a lot to Talisman, more than they'd probably realise. And they came to us with the 3 expansions that are included in the Adventurous Starter Bundle. So the Adventurous Starter Bundle, let me just get myself refreshed, because I don't want to give you incorrect information. It's not what we're about here. So the Adventurous Starter Bundle is the Talisman Digital Edition, so the base game, the Frost March, the Sacred Pool, and the City. So those 3 expansions plus the base game are basically really good introductions to what you can expect from Talisman. They add enough to the game that shows you, what you can hope to experience without being overwhelming, because as many experienced Talisman players will probably tell you, there are certain expansions that until you've got to grips with the game, you should probably avoid, because they're going to be too difficult. The Dragon and the Firelands expansion, the Ancient Beasts, come to mind as like, alright, make sure that you're ready for a hard experience. You need to play cautiously. So I get 4, which means I become good. I'm right with being good. I think I was already good. Well, I'll stick with being good. Yeah, basically, if you're unsure on what to get, because there's a lot of stuff to browse through, the Adventure Starter Pack, highly recommend. It's also one of our most popular pieces of stuff. Basically, like, it comes very recommended by the community. So definitely worth checking out. What else have we got? Yes, the Season Pass. Another really popular item. For anyone who's curious about the Season Pass and what it contains, very easy. Anything that was released physically for the Talisman board game, as in you could pick it up and play with it, is included in the Season Pass. When we first made the Season Pass, we said on the store page, anyone that's on the Talisman forums or check out the Season Pass, you'll be able to see this. And we've been very open and honest about it since it's happened. Because when I first joined Nomad, this is something I really wanted to sort, and I've put a lot of effort into sorting. Basically, when we first made the Season Pass, on the store description, we said it'd contain all future DLC. And then after a little while, we realised, oh, there's enough like legs here, there's enough content and stuff that we can do with Talisman that we might want to make our own stuff. Like, we could probably make stuff for this for a very, very long time. So we were like, okay, well, we didn't think of that originally. We originally just thought, we'll make the stuff for the physical game and then stop. But we quickly realised that that wouldn't be the case. So we were like, okay, well, initially we were just planning on making the stuff for the physical game, and that's why we put that in the Season Pass description. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we want to make our own stuff, and do we want to be tied into just keep on adding to this Season Pass forever? So we're like, actually, no, we want to make it so that, you know, this Season Pass has a definitive end, and then if we decide to make more stuff, then we can do that separately. So within, I think it was less than a month, we changed the store description. Then, basically, understandably, we completely understand, a lot of people were like, well, I bought this when it said it had all the DLC. Now you've changed it so that it doesn't say you'll get all future DLC, and you're coming out with more stuff. What's the deal? So we listened to the community, there was a lot of discussion, and basically what we decided to do was anyone that bought the Season Pass, while it's stated on that store page, it'll contain all future DLC, we will honour that forever. So anyone that bought it during that window, we have either already automatically given access to all future DLC, happens automatically. So if we release any new stuff, all those people will get it automatically. We basically have to tick something in the Steam backend. And we have honoured that since then. Because if you bought it and it said it would contain all future DLC, that's what you bought. So that's what we'll give you. So yeah, that's a very long explanation as to why the Season Pass only contains everything that was released physically, because we have released stuff since then. But if you bought it when it said you'd have all future DLC, you still do that. And if there's anyone out there, because we sometimes get them through every now and again, sometimes because it's an automated system, it doesn't quite get everyone. If there's anyone out there who bought the Season Pass during that first month where the store page said you'll get all future DLC and you don't have all the DLC, you can email support@nomadgames.co.uk or visit our website, just search for Nomad Games, and you'll be able to find our support page on our website. Or join our Discord, you can message me on there. However you want to do it, all you need to do is show me proof that you bought it, which you can easily do through Steam. and then we'll send you a code, get you sorted, which I've done a good handful of times at this point. So yeah, basically it was a bit of a mess, but we did our best to fix it, and so far I think we've done okay at fixing it. You know, we've given everyone what they paid for, and anyone that's coming to us later, we'll sort them out. So yeah, don't know how to leap on from this to another subject, so I'm just going to play Talisman and talk about what's happening, because that seems like a good idea. One, the most exciting role of all. Let's go here. Shadow. Alright, you have a craft of 2, which seems fairly low. So let's... Alright, it might seem fairly low, but you rolled a 6, so I still lost, which is sad, but that's what you get when you play a game with random dice. Alright, so I think that's the end of my turn. Not much else I can do, not much else I need to do. So yeah, basically if you want the entire Talisman physical experience, you know, everything that you could possibly have with the physical board game, grab the season pass. If you want all of the digital exclusive stuff that we've done that you can't get physically, we do have the what's it called? I know you'll be able to browse down and see exactly what it is, but I can't do that at the moment, so I'm trying to figure out what it is. The Digital Exclusive Collection Bundle. The Digital Exclusive Collection Bundle, which is very easy to say by the way, contains everything we've ever done that was digital exclusive for Talisman. So while there might be lots of DLC to look at and lots of things to try and understand in terms of, well, what bundle contains this, what bundle contains that, to put it super simply, Digital Exclusive Collection contains everything that wasn't released for the original board game. Season Pass contains everything that was released for the original board game. So if you have the Season Pass and the Digital Exclusive Collection together, you officially have everything. That's the way it works, because you have everything physical and you have everything not physical. So if you want to get everything, that's the easiest way of doing it. And you should get a discount if you buy it that way, because Steam gives you a discount on bundles. So not only will you save money on what's already happening, you will also get extra money off. And we all like money off. I know I like money off. Right, I'm going to drink a little bit more of my drink. Apologies, but my throat is a bit sore. And I sure did pick the right day to record. Alright, so let's have a look at the Necropolis. So what do you do? It's treated as if you were visiting the graveyard. Alright, well, I'll go to the fields. Encounter space, draw an adventure card. So, every single spirit gets moved here. That is fun. So, I didn't know if I'd be able to show you this, because it doesn't happen that often. But for me, apparently it does. So, if you're fighting multiple enemies at the same time, they will not take turns, they will all fight you at once, because they're nice like that. So, let's have a look at what we've got. So I've got a 7, which does not beat their 8. I could re-roll, but I've only got, let's do some quick maths, I need to get a 5 or a 6 to, 5 or a 6 to win. And if I get a 4, that's just a draw. So, it's not the best odds. Is it that bad? Yeah, let's re-roll. A 2. So, the good news is I don't lose any worse. I still lose, but I don't lose any worse. So, That's alright. Yeah, what else can I tell you about Talisman while we're playing? Yes, so you might be wondering why I haven't immediately gone for the centre of the board, if that's where I need to go to win. There's a very good reason for that. That's because the centre of the board, as you'd be able to see if there wasn't a fight going on right now, is defended by a number of different obstacles, encounters, and nefarious creatures that require strength, craft, some good dice rolls. Basically, everything that can stop you is going to try and stop you. So that's why it's a good idea to get your strength and craft up before you make a dash for the middle. I tend to go around 9, 10 craft or 9, 10 strength before I feel confident enough to make it to the middle. You can go with lower if you want to feel risky, but every player has a different amount that they're happy to go for. Or if you see that someone else is going for the middle, sometimes it can be a good idea to go, okay, my odds aren't great, but if I don't do something now, I'm probably going to lose. So it's one of those things where when I first started playing Talisman, I was sort of put off by how random it felt, and how much it felt like I didn't really have control over what I was doing. But the more you play it, the more you realise you do actually have quite a lot of control. It's a lot about hedging your bets. It's a lot about making smart decisions based on what is put in front of you. Alright, so speaking of smart choices, let's make sure I make a smart choice. So I can either go to the hills, I could go to the chapel, or I could see what's on here. So what is actually on here? Sacred Ground, will reign here the rest of the game. If it is day, roll 1 die to pray with the same results as the chapel. If it is night, roll 1 die to pray with the same results as the graveyard. Alright, I'm going to add 1 to my movement dice, because that's the special ability of my character, which makes him quite cool. And let's go to the chapel. So, chapel is a special board space that has some unique rules. So based on your alignment, certain things will happen. If you're evil, you lose 1 life. You get smacked by a nun or something. I'm not quite sure how it works. If you're neutral, you can pay money to heal. And if you're good, which I am, which is quite nice, I can heal to my life value for free or pray. So I'm going to pray because I get bonuses for praying because I am a pilgrim. Because I can replenish in fate anytime I do so. So let's do that. Let's pray. 6. Gain a spell. So let's draw a spell. A vortex. Cast on any character in your region at the start of your turn. Instead of moving normally, the character must roll 1 die to determine where they move. Okay. So crags, tavern, city, castle, temple, or pool of power. I think I'm going to cast that on myself, because if I can use that to get into the inner region, I'm able to get a head start on building up my craft and my strength ahead of everyone else. So like I said, even though Talisman does seem quite random because you're relying on dice rolls and random cards, there is still quite an element of decision making to be involved in terms of who you'll target with what, which choices you'll make between different cards. It's basically a lot more going on under the hood once you start playing, and I think most experienced players would agree with that. There's still an element of randomness because that's inherently what Talisman is, and we totally understand that that'll be a bit off-putting for certain people. But like I said, a lot of the strategy and a lot of the sort of player experience that comes from Talisman is finding ways to mitigate that risk. At least that's how I play it. Anyway. Alright, we've got 7 versus 10. Not good. Not good at all. So yeah, basically right now I'm playing with the base game and a couple of expansions. Each expansion adds new cards, new characters to play as, and some of them add new mechanics or even new parts to the board, which is quite fun. If you want a bit more of a hardcore experience, which I know a lot of our players do, you might have seen, if you've been away from Talisman for a little while, you might not have seen it and you might be wondering what I'm talking about. But for certain expansions, we've released legendary decks. So these are basically these are basically upgrades to existing expansion decks. So each expansion comes with a deck of adventure cards and items and weapons. The legendary deck basically replaces the deck that comes with that existing expansion with a harder, more difficult to survive version. So whereas before a dragon might be pretty strong, if you play with the legendary version, it will be much stronger. I've heard a lot of more experienced players say they really appreciate the legendary decks because it helps to balance the game out. Not balance the game out. Basically, sometimes there can be an issue in Talisman where people will snowball, where you basically get so much stuff and get so much strength and craft that there's nothing really that can stop you at that point, which is fine because then you can go for the centre of the board and generally win. But some players like to play with the other endings that last a bit longer. So having more tough enemies that could potentially still pose a threat, even if you've snowballed, really helps to add a bit more longevity to the game. If anyone's tried out the legendary decks, put it in the chat. Let me know what you think, because basically legendary decks were made because of requests from the community, so I'm always interested to hear what people think of them now they're actually out. Alright, I'm going to cast this on myself. I'm going to step into a vortex and see where I go. City, not bad. Alright, let's roll for the Enchantress. Gain strength. I won't say no. I won't say no to that. I'm perfectly happy to get strength. Oh, that's another thing I can talk about. So, Talisman Digital Edition, obviously you can play the game, but a while ago we implemented a challenge feature. You might not be able to see them because they're popping up right behind my head on the stream, so you're welcome. But basically, as you're playing, it'll keep track of various statistics, various accomplishments, basically various milestones as you play. And as you complete those challenges, you'll unlock avatars and you'll unlock titles to customize your profile with. So when you're playing online, you can show that a certain character is your favorite, or show off a title that you've earned for doing something impressive. And to celebrate the fact that we have, been given this chance by Valve, our good, cool friends at Valve, to take part in this daily deal, we wanted to do something special. So we were like, well, we don't really have the resources to make new expansions at the moment. We don't have the resources to create new stuff for the game. In terms of, the common request is we want more expansions, and we'd love to make more expansions. In a minute, I'll talk about the state of Talisman and what we've got planned for the future. But we were like, well, we don't want to do nothing. So we've added a bunch of new avatars that you can pick and choose from. It's a load of characters from the different physical expansions. I think we now have them all in that you can choose from. So if your favourite character is someone from the Highlands expansion that you've not been able to use as an avatar before, you can now use them. You can now deck your profile out in a bunch of new characters. So highly recommend checking that out. If you really love certain characters, hopefully they'll now been added. So you can pick them and all your friends will know that you really, really like. I'm trying to think of an example. My brain's gone very blank. If you really, really, really enjoy the Scavenger, you just love the Scavenger, and you want everyone to know that you love the Scavenger, you can let them know. Alright. Replenish a fate. And then let's go up to 5 to gain a life. Alright, back to full health. Feeling good about myself. Alright, I think that's most of what I was going to talk about with the avatars. Yeah, basically, check out the profile customization options. It's really good. Next thing I was going to talk about, as promised, I was going to talk about the future of Talisman. So it's a bit of an odd one because I've talked about it a bunch of times on streams and stuff before. So part of it feels like just treading the same water I've tread before, but also I imagine this is being watched by a bunch of more people than any of our previous streams or discussions. So I think it's quite nice to go over it again, and also some things have changed, so I think it's worth talking about what the future of the game is, because I know obviously right now in the games industry we've much more gone towards a not only business model but active way of just existing, where players are expecting constant updates. You're seeing so many live service games, you're seeing so many games that have just constant content. And Talisman came out in 2004, so we were a bit behind on that. And I know that people have been asking for new content for Talisman Digital Edition for ages. And as I've said in previous streams, there's a number of different factors why right now we can't announce anything for Talisman Digital Edition. Number one is we are currently insanely busy here at Nomad. For anyone that doesn't know, we have published Catan Console Edition. Well, I say published. Our good friends at Dovetail have published. We did all the development work. Most of the development work. A good amount of the development work. And I'm trying to work out what I'm trying to say. Basically, we're very busy. Not only with Catan, we are also knee-deep in a secret project that we're working on. I can tell you that it's not Talisman, but other than that, I can't really tell you anything. It's unlike anything we've ever done before, but also very much in the ballpark of what we've done before, which is weird. And our time at the moment in terms of development is split pretty much 50-50 between Catan and this secret project. And any time that we take away from either of those two things actively is costing us money, because Catan is, you know, we have deadlines to meet, we have milestones to hit, you know, we're doing the development work, but we also have a publisher in the form of Dovetail, who are doing a great job of supporting us, not only with development but with marketing, and they have certain deadlines that they want us to meet, which is fair because that's the way business works. And they've been great to work with. But we don't want to turn around to them and say, "Oh, sorry, this update's going to be late because we were working on whatever. We're working on something else." That's not a very good way of doing business. So we basically got to make sure those updates keep coming. And we also are working on this super secret project that I wish I could talk about. I so wish I could talk about, but I can't, and it's so frustrating to not be able to talk about it, but I wish I could. I wish I could. Basically, any time that we take away from those two things means that it has to be a really good reason to do it. And at the moment, while we know that there's a big demand for Talisman content, and we know that Talisman does well, anytime we release anything for Talisman, it's going to do well, it's going to sell okay. We basically have to make a tough decision as to, is it worth our time? And right this moment, it's very hard to justify putting more time into Talisman. That doesn't mean that won't change in the future, but right now at this moment, it's very hard to justify. Like some of our other titles, we've been very open and honest about whether or not we'd be able to make future content for it. So I don't think you should take this as me saying, "Oh, maybe we'll do something." Like, if there are older games of ours that have no chance of getting future content because it just isn't financially viable in the slightest, whether that's been on the Discord or the Steam forums or Reddit, wherever, I've always been completely honest and said, look, here's the situation. Mystic Vale, for example, the previous expansions that we've released for it haven't made their money back, not really, in terms of the amount of time it took to develop them and the development costs. I'm giving you a little peek behind the curtain at the moment, but basically what we do is we calculate how much it costs to make the content versus how much revenue it generates over a certain amount of time. So sometimes it can take a couple of months if it's a really, really good seller. Sometimes it can take years. And it's okay to have a couple of things that take years to sell off or to make their money back. But once you have multiple things like that, it starts to get tricky. It starts to get very tricky. So for titles like Mystic Vale, where we know if we spent the time to make a new expansion for it, we wouldn't see a return on that for at least 2 years. We literally can't justify that. That's how we end up going out of business as a game studio. So I've always been upfront and said, look, we can't, as much as we'd like to do it, we can't. So for the games like that, again, I'm being completely honest when I say those titles probably aren't going to get more content, or definitely aren't going to get more content. So I hope that gives a good indication of when I talk about the future of Talisman, where I don't say, oh, we're never going to make anything, because it just isn't financially viable. If anything, Talisman is one of our most financially viable products. It's just at the moment, there's other factors involved as well. So in terms of the future of Talisman itself. So we don't know what the future of Talisman is going to be. We've talked a bit to our friends at Games Workshop to see if we can figure out what they've got planned in the future, if anything, for the game, because I know that they have a lot of fans who are like, 4th edition's been out for a while now, is 5th edition going to happen, is that going to be a thing? And we're basically holding out until we get a more definitive answer on what the future of Talisman is going to be, because if there is a 5th edition, that'd be really cool, and we'd love to do that. There's not much point in us putting new content into this current version, if there is, right? So we are basically waiting to hear back from that. Our fingers are crossed, because we bloody love Talisman. And we know from our own experience, like I know from my own personal experience of interacting with the community, that there is such a passion there for this game. There is such a love and such an appreciation that it'd be a shame to not do something more with Talisman. I know that there's the Kingdom Hearts and the Star Wars and Batman versions of Talisman, so clearly there's still a market there. Like, they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't think they could make money off it. So basically, the future of Talisman is a bit up in the air at the moment, and because of that, it makes us a bit wary of committing to making new Talisman content, because say for example we decide to make a new expansion. It takes 6 months to develop. 3 months into development, there's an announcement about the future of Talisman. We then go, okay, well, it's kind of been overshadowed by this announcement, and it doesn't fit in with whatever's happening with the future of Talisman. So for the moment, especially while we have other projects to tide us over as a studio, we're taking a step back from active development on Talisman. We're still releasing updates, because, you know, we can spare the time to do updates. Updates don't take a huge amount of time, especially if there's things that the community think that needs to be fixed. So we're still releasing updates, and we're still putting out those at a fairly regular basis. Apologies, I've talked for an entire hour, and my throat's getting a bit sore. I also stopped playing the game because I was too excited talking about Talisman. Right, I've been ignored. That's fine. You can ignore me all you like. I basically just went into Talisman information brain dump mode. So apologies for anyone that's actually watching for the gameplay. But yeah, where was I? Basically, we're unsure about the future of Talisman, so it makes us a bit wary. And while we've got other stuff to work on, we'd rather work on the stuff that we know is going to be guaranteed. And that's basically where Talisman stands. I know that the Talisman RPG is doing quite well. I've heard quite a few good things about that. And I've heard a couple of people ask if we'd ever do a adaptation of the Talisman RPG, which we could, but it's quite a bit out of our wheelhouse. Like, we've never done an RPG before. We've only ever done straight adaptations. Well, we did do the fighting fantasy games, but that's a bit different. An actual proper, like, tabletop RPG, that's a big ask. For anyone that's, obviously, you've all probably played Baldur's Gate 3 by now. It takes a lot of time and effort, and we're only 15 people. I don't know how many people there are in Larian, actually. It is Larian that make Baldur's Gate 3, right? I'm going to look like a right fool if I've got that wrong. Larian Studio. That was it. Larian Studio. Yeah, in order to make something like that, requires more resources than we realistically have. I think that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about us here at Nomad. And I hope you all appreciate too, which is we're very aware of the size of our studio. We're very aware that we're not a massive AAA studio. Like, we are going to do what we can within our means, and make very smart business decisions. The other thing, we've been going for 11 years now as a game studio, and you don't get to stick around for 11 years if you're not making smart decisions. So I'd like to think we're at least a little bit smart. Alright, what we've got? Holy water. Nice. Can't have that if you're evil. Makes sense. It's for good people only. Alright, what are you doing, dwarf? Where are you headed? Ruins. I also said at the start of the stream that I'd probably show you a very easy version of the game and then play a harder game, but I think I'm just going to keep going with this one because at this point, which I figured would happen as the recording went on, I've just started rambling about what's happening here at Nomad. Yeah, what else can I talk about? So obviously I've talked about the future of Talisman. Yeah, I mean, depending on what happens with the future of Talisman, because it's very much decided by our friends at Games Workshop. You know, they're the ones that own the IP rights. They're the ones that decide what happens with it. So we are going to take their lead in terms of future content, always. So we're basically just waiting to hear from them. At the moment, they haven't really said whether they want to do anything particular. Not that we've heard anyway. So, yeah. But the desire is there. The desire is most definitely there. I can guarantee you that. All right. Sacred ground. Let's go here. Because it is now daytime. All right, let's defeat a lemur. And then let's replenish a fate from praying, because that's my special ability. And then get 3. So let's add 1 to that. So I get to draw a spell. Let's queue up a stasis. Right. Also, if anyone has any recommendations for Talisman expansions or Talisman characters or anything else they think is worth picking up for the game, leave it in the chat, because there's a lot to go through. And I think one of the things that I very quickly learned is that there is a very experienced Talisman community that knows what they're talking about. You can also find them on our Discord. Quite a lot of them like to hang out there. But yeah, people know their stuff when it comes to Talisman. So if anyone has any recommendations for newer players or players who don't know where to get started with expansions, like I said, the Adventurous Starter Kit tends to be a really good starting point. Hence why it's called the Starter Kit for new players. But there's other expansions as well. So I'm sure people have other recommendations for cool stuff. All right. Dwarf wins the combat. All right. So everyone's sort of slowly increasing their stats as the game goes on. So people draw more cards, draw more items, and as time goes on, people just get stronger and stronger. You need a little bit of luck on your side. Little luck always helps, but don't necessarily need all the luck. Let's add a dice and go to the tavern. See if we have a drink. All right, miss a turn. I don't miss a turn because I'm a pilgrim. He's so steadfast in his beliefs that he won't get drunk. That makes sense, actually. Pilgrims are very religious and wouldn't get drunk. Yeah. The sale is going to be going on all week, so you've got quite a bit of time to have a browse, take a look at what you want. We also have discounts on a number of different platforms, so I know on mobile, PlayStation, we also have discounts on Talisman, so if you play on other things as well, you can pick it up there. a good thing I can talk about. It just came to my mind, which makes sense. While the game is on sale not only on Steam but on mobile as well. So this is a feature that's been in the game for years, but a surprising number of players don't know about it. So Talisman Digital Edition supports purchase syncing. So basically, to sum it up easily, if you own expansions or characters or legendary decks for Talisman Digital Edition on certain platforms, you can share that content with other platforms. So say you bought the Season Pass on Steam and you also have Talisman Digital Edition on your mobile. Sign into your Nomad account. There's a guide on our website or on our Discord, and there's a guide as well to how to do that. It's pretty simple. Basically, sign into your Nomad account on the Steam version, sign in on the mobile version, give it a minute to connect to the server, and then it will automatically share any of the expansions that you've purchased with that other platform. So, like I said, say you have the Season Pass on Steam. If you download the mobile version of Talisman, sign into your Nomad account, you'll then have that Season Pass on mobile as well. So, very handy if you already own a lot of stuff on Steam or mobile. It means basically you only have to buy the base game and then you have it all somewhere else again. Again, it's something that has been in the game from the very early stages. But not a lot of people know about. So I'm trying to do my part to get it more known that that's a thing that you can do. Because it is a thing you can do. And I think it's well worth doing for a lot of players, because a lot of players won't realise that you could do that. And you basically just need to pick up the base game on mobile and you have everything that you've already purchased over there, which is pretty cool. Let's draw a spell. Hex. I would really like the artwork for Hex. It looks so metal. Ooh. One other thing I can point out that's good to know if you're planning on purchasing Talisman Digital Edition stuff. So, another common question that we got was, how does DLC and expansion sharing work when you are playing multiplayer? Because I know that there's been multiple games, especially more recently. Well, it tended to be more of a thing in the like Xbox 360, PS3 era, I think, where you'd get like map packs and stuff like that. And it was like, okay, well, say you have a map pack, but your friend Steve doesn't have a map pack. Steve can't play with you unless he buys that map pack as well. So it's like you both need to buy it. The way that we've set up Talisman Digital Edition is if you are in a multiplayer lobby and anyone in that lobby owns a particular expansion, you can use that in the game. So you could be in a full 6-player lobby, one of you owns everything, you can play with everything in that game. Like, as long as one person owns it, that's fine. I know when I was a student, we used to take massive advantage of the multiplayer multiple purchase bundles that Steam used to do. I know they don't do them anymore because basically people would abuse the system like anything. But I know that I really used to appreciate that because one person would spend £10 and everyone would be able to play together, which was really nice. So you can do a similar thing with Talisman. If one of you wants to buy everything and then everyone else just buys the base game, you can still play together. Obviously they won't be able to play solo with all the expansions, but if all you're interested is playing in multiplayer, then yeah, deliver 2 followers. I can do that. Yeah, if all you're interested is playing in multiplayer, only one of you needs to buy all the stuff, which is quite nice. The only thing that you can't do, just a heads up, because some people have pointed this out before, is if you don't own an expansion, so you know how I was on that character selection screen? If you don't own an expansion, when you're playing multiplayer, you can't choose those characters. So say Steve owns the Dragon expansion and I don't. On the character selection part, he'll be able to choose from characters from that expansion, I won't. And then we'll be able to play with the expansion in the game. Basically, we need to have some reason that you're incentivized to purchase it. So whoever wants to choose those characters, you can. You can change the character selection to random, and then even if you don't own the expansion, you'll still be able to play the character. But you won't be able to pick and choose, if that makes sense. I believe that's due to how it defines who owns the expansion. Or I think it's to do with how... I'm trying to think exactly how it's set up now. The character selection screen is defined by what you own, and the ability to choose expansions to play in multiplayer is not defined by what you own, it's defined by what the room as a whole owns. I believe that's right. I'm sure people will correct me if I'm wrong. Let's see what we can do in the game. Alright, so I've got Benediction. I now have 8 life. That's insane. What is the altar? No, well, I didn't want to re-roll. That was a misclick, but that's fine. Alright, balance your fate. Get fate back anyway. Gain a spell. Let's add 1. So I get immediately take another turn. Alright. And then let's go back to the Lore Master. Let's gain a spell. Alright. Let's change someone's alignment. Let's make you good. How's that sound? Oh, actually, I should have done that on the Samurai because then it'd make her drop the item she was carrying. She's basically getting through my turn. I want to talk more about Talisman. What was I even saying before? Multiplayer. Share expansions. Get one of your mates to buy everything. Then you can all play together. It's a good way of doing it. Yeah, I think that's most of what I have to tell you about Talisman, other than actually playing the game. We sit here in awkward silence while I think of something to say. Always very fun. We also have a bunch of our other games on sale as part of this event that we're running. So if you want to pick up discounts on Steam for Fury of Dracula, which has a really cool and active community on our Discord, you can grab that at a discount. If you want to pick up Mystic Vale, Fighting Fantasy, Cat Lady, which is a great little game, highly recommend. Cat Lady is my personal favourite. You can do all of that during this event. So yeah, really appreciate Valve for letting us do this. They just had their 20th anniversary So big congratulations to them. I think they've done pretty well over 20 years, I'd say. I think they're doing all right as a company. But yeah, every time we've interacted with Valve, they've always been super lovely and super chill and super happy to help us. I know that I had so many questions about how certain things worked on Steam, and every time we've asked them, they've always been super helpful and super willing to let us get involved in cool stuff like this. So yeah, a big thank you to Valve. I don't think I really need to convince many of the people here that Valve are cool, but hey, here I am doing it anyway, while I beat a strange night spirit demon looking thing. Alright, I win. So I'm going to trade this for some tasty craft. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. Alright, so yeah, basically, roll dice, see where you end up, try not to die, occasionally get turned into a toad. If you've seen any of the things that I've ever posted on the Nomad social channels, you know that we love a toad. It's an iconic part of Talisman. There's various effects that you can turn you into a toad, and it's a fate worse than death. Or a cute fate, depending on who you ask. I personally, not a fan of getting turned into a toad. Can't say I'm a big fan. But some people don't mind it. Alright, let's have a look. Samara's lost a life. What's the dwarf going to do? Yeah, if you have any other questions for us here at Nomad, either me personally or any member of the team, every single month we do a studio roundup where we talk about all the stuff that we did in the previous month. So we post it at the start of every month, generally on whatever weekday that tends to be, and we post that every single month. And in that monthly roundup, we have a mailbag. So we have an address that you can send questions to for the entire Nomad team. And no matter what you send in, literally no matter what question you send in, we will answer it. That I guarantee. And then we'll answer it publicly in our next month's monthly roundup. So we've had a bunch of weird and wild and strange questions over the years. We've been asked what our favourite biscuits are. We've been asked, why we've done things in particular ways when it comes to game development. We've been asked about the future of Nomad, about the future of the games that we work on. I'm going to add one to my dice because I've done enough of sitting here and not playing the game instead of just talking to you all. A 1, let's add 2 to that to make it 3. I'm cool with that. Yeah, basically every single month we'll answer any questions that you send in. So if you have any questions for us, the email for that is questions@nomadgames.co.uk, or you can just go to our social channels, go to our website. You'll find the August roundup, and then right at the bottom of that is all of the questions that we answered, and also a form that you can just shove your questions in. We also give out Steam keys to the best questions every month. So if you're a bit on the fence about asking us something, you might as well, because if you send us a cool question, I might give you a Steam key. And if there's anything I know about people on Steam, they like Steam keys. If you're an experienced Talisman player, because I've had this before, if you're an experienced Talisman player and you already own everything Talisman related, I can give you Steam keys for anything that you want out of our games library. So don't worry about going, I don't want anything, because I already have everything Talisman related, because I love Talisman and Talisman's the coolest game ever. Also, thank you if that's what you say. I don't think that's what you'd say, but I'd like to think that's what you'd say, if that makes sense. What was I saying? I've completely lost track of my mind. Let's cast a spell. Let's cast a hex before I move. And then let's move here and get some more spells. Yeah, basically, send us questions. I'll think you're cool. And is that not worth your time? And you'll also be able to find out whatever you want about us. If you want to know what we've got planned next, if you want to know why we designed the Legendary decks the way that we did, if you want to know how we're finding working from home, if you want to know what country we'd all like to go on holiday to, or what board games we'd really like to adapt digitally. That was a fun question. Or how excited we were for Starfield. That was another question that we got recently. Send them in, because we'd love to hear it. And it's always quite fun, because we've got a Nomad Games Discord. Not that one. This is one that's just for us as a company, because we all work from home. It's our main way of keeping in touch aside from emails. So I've set up a channel on there just to discuss monthly mailbag questions. And it's always a very fun time discussing some of the weird and wonderful questions that you all send in. So highly recommend that, because it'll keep us entertained, and is that not worth it when you think about it? Let's get healing and generosity. Who's got a lot of gold? No one. Lovely. So I've got a spell that will steal all of the gold that someone has, and no one has any gold. Lovely. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours. Alright, Staff of Balance. Well, you can't hold the Staff of Balance, so not much good to you. Right, let's see what we've got going on here. Samurai. If anyone's wondering, by the way, how long an average Talisman game goes on for, that's a very good question. Generally, the agreed consensus, depending on how fast you play, it's about an hour and a half, but that'll change based on the number of expansions that you're playing with. If you're playing with more expansions, expect it to take longer. But yeah, generally, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But it's a fairly chill game. Like, I hope you've been able to gather from the fact that I've just been casually playing in the background while chatting to you all that it's not a very strenuous game. It is quite chill. There's certain video games that I like to play where I will very much classify it as a podcast game, where I can just stick a podcast on, chill out, play a game, have a nice time. Talisman is 100% that. 100% that. And if you're looking for something to play with friends, nothing will get you laughing quite like Talisman. Like, the number of things that can happen in a Talisman game that will just give you a chance to just completely ruin your friend's day is unmatched, in my opinion. Alright, I think that is going to be where I call it. So, what will happen now is me from hour and 24 minutes ago will loop back around like nothing's ever happened. That old Tom doesn't know any of the things that I know now, which is quite weird. But I'm sure he'll be just as cool and just as interesting and just as chill as I was. So, well, yeah, he will be because that was me, but I was trying to make a joke, didn't really land. You're welcome. So, I think that is going to be where I leave it. So thank you very much for watching. If you watched the whole thing, I think you're very cool. If you've just tuned in halfway through or right at the end, this should loop, so you'll be able to watch the whole thing anyway. And if you picked up anything during our sale here on Steam, you are very cool. And you've helped us carry on making digital board games, which we've been doing for 11 years, and we are very much looking forward to doing for 11 more years. The passage of time is scary. Alright, I think that's it. So, thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you very much for checking us out during the Talisman sale. Love you lots. Bye.